17th, emergency responders responded to an emergency at a Waterbury, Connecticut home. When they got there, they found a 32-year-old man who had been locked in his room since he was 11 years old by his stepmother. According to the man, his stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, had him locked in a room and was only giving him sandwiches 2 times a day, and she's been doing that for the past 20 years.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, don't worry, I'm gonna break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG reels, Facebook, anything weird, usual, and unexplained, you can find right here on this channel. I just want to thank all my supporters, man, who's coming back to the channel each and every single day, watching their videos entirely, man, commenting down below, and most importantly, hitting that thumbs up button on each and every single video drop. You guys are helping growing the community. I greatly appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do best, seekers. Stay with me, y'all. I know what we do. We do it every day, man. Let's seek the truth.
Let's talk about one of the most haunted dolls in North America. Before I display him, I highly suggest you comment that you claim no negative energy in this video. Now, before I start, Robert, I respect you, and all I am doing is telling your story.
Respect
in the
Robert.
late 1800s, Thomas Otto and his family moved into a mansion in Key West, Florida. The Ottos were known to be stern with their servants, sometimes even mistreating them. There was a woman who was hired to take care of their son Robert, and one day Mrs. Otto supposedly witnessed her practicing black magic in their backyard and fired her. Before she left, the woman gave Robert a lifelike doll which stood 3 feet tall, had buttons for eyes, and human hair believed to be Robert's. Soon after, Robert chose to be referred by his middle name, Gene, after being scolded by his mother. He told her that Robert was the doll's name, not his. Gene was often heard in his toy room having conversations with Robert. Household objects would be found thrown across the room. Gene's toys turned up mutilated and giggling could be heard. Robert supposedly attacked people, sometimes locking them in the attic. One certain night, Robert was found at the foot of the owner's bed, giggling with a kitchen knife in hand. Robert was later moved to the East Martello Museum in Key West, where he sits perched in a glass box to this day. One employee cleaned Robert, turned off all the lights, and left for the night. The next day, he returned to find lights turned on and Robert sitting in a different position than the night before, and a fresh layer of dust on his shoes. Some say he'll even curse you. If you want to take a picture of him, you may ask politely. He'll tilt his head in permission. Now I just want to say again, Robert, I respect you, and I am just trying to tell more people about your story. Have you seen Robert in person? Have you ever had any experiences with him? Let me know in the comments.
Stay away from Robert, man. Looks like I have some bad energy.
SpongeBob night. Liam, come here. Liam, right now. What is happening? Okay, I'm calling your mom. Just stay right here. Cheese. Cheese. What you doing? What you see?
Papa.
What you see? Who are you saying hi to? Who are you saying hi to? Dude, you need to stop that. You're freaking me out. Come on.
He said, hi, Papa, hi. I mean, you know, sometimes, like I said, kids, people be thinking they're talking to, like, that. I guess they're imaginary friends or something like that. But what happens if, man, if they're really talking to, like, a spirit, or they be seeing spirits? That's an interesting thing I'm gonna propose to you guys. What do you guys think? Cooking on that one.
Spirits in my head and they won't go. I got guns in my head and they won't go. Spirits in my head and they won't go. I got guns in my head.
Classic.
And they won't go. Spirits in my head and they won't go. I got guns in my head and they won't go. Spirits in my head and they won't go. I got guns.
never stay up past midnight again, especially during a sleepover. This, my friends, is the Midnight Clown. Click the plus, drop a like, tag a friend, share it through. He might show up at your house tonight. He's an absolutely insane, vindictive clown, targeting kids who are having sleepovers. Kids being distracted, he ends up killing the parents. Then when the kids come downstairs to use the bathroom, they notice their parents, and then all of them are never seen again. And I actually just reacted to a video of people ordering a clown off the dark web. The first 100 people to click the link in my bio, subscribe, like, and comment on that video will get a shout out. Good luck, my friends.
You go to clowns off the dark web? That's news to me. What the hell is going on there? There's really a market for everything and anything, man. Who wants to buy a clown off the dark web with that? I had no idea. You know what that is.
Rare photos of fascinating people through history. This was Jacques Plante, the first goalie in hockey to ever wear a protective face mask in 1959, and I think you can see why. In 1964, Randy Gardner set the world record for the longest time without sleep, staying awake for 264 hours. The objects that are next to him were used to prove that he was still lucid. This was Maurice Tillett, a wrestler known as the French Angel. Some say he inspired Shrek, and he went undefeated for 18 months in the early 1940s. In 1907, this swimmer, Annette Kellerman, was arrested for indecency for wearing this exact bathing suit at Revere Beach in Massachusetts. This is Brumasia Gelgi, the world's tallest woman at just over 7 feet. This was Valentine Tapley, who vowed in 1860 to never cut his beard if Lincoln was elected. Here he is in 1896. He placed 5th in a world's longest beard competition. They had some long beards back then, apparently. Oh my goodness. This was Albert Woolson, the last surviving Civil War veteran. He fought for the Union Army and died in 1956 at 106 years old. This was Ham, the chimpanzee, the first ape launched into space. His mission tested cognitive function and safety. It was successful, and he actually returned unharmed. This was Charlotte and Marjorie Collier, a mother and daughter who survived the Titanic. Charlotte's husband and Marjorie's father, Harvey, died in the wreck, and they also lost their life savings of 5,000 pounds in cash.
These are human body parts that
Crazy.
may disappear in the future. First up is body hair. Originally, it protected ancient humans from harsh weather conditions. However, over time, with modern clothes and changes in environmental conditions, human body hair has significantly decreased and continues to do so. Many scientists believe it might eventually completely disappear. Next are wisdom teeth. They used to serve an evolutionary purpose for ancient humans who had much rougher diets and needed more chewing power. But our diets have softened and our jaws have become increasingly smaller. As a result, they have no space to properly grow in, and many people need to have them surgically removed. Many babies are now being born without wisdom teeth, and scientists believe this will eventually be the standard. Finally, we have male nipples. Everyone starts as female in the womb, and before the Y chromosome kicks in for males, nipples have already formed. When the baby becomes male, the prolactin levels decrease, making the male nipples non-functional. So while it's debated, some scientists think they'll disappear.
Rare people who
Got male nipples gonna disappear now, bro? Could you guys even imagine that, bro? I'm thinking, imagine that, man. That would look like nightmare fuel to me. I just can't even imagine that. That's freaking screwed up my mind. But we evolving. So I guess that's what comes with it.
who are unique in the world. First, this 11-year-old Mexican girl has an IQ higher than Einstein's. Meet Adhara Perez. At just 11 years old, Adhara Perez Sanchez has an impressive record and an IQ that surpasses that of Einstein, as well as Stephen Hawking, whom she has always admired. Diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, Adhara started speaking late. Her teachers did not have high expectations for her future. However, thanks to her academic progress, she completed elementary school at the age of 5 and high school at 8. At 9 years old, she gave a lecture on black holes at an event organized by the Institute of Art and Culture of Mexico City, and published a book in which she shared her experience as a high-functioning autistic child, dedicated to children who suffer from the same condition as her. She has also been recognized by Forbes as one of the 100 most influential women in Mexico. Adhara is pursuing a master's degree in mathematical engineering at the Technological University of Mexico City. She is passionate about the cosmos and the stars. She dreams of joining NASA and participating in the exploration exploration of the planet Mars. She also plans to design a connected bracelet capable of detecting emotions and preventing epileptic seizures.
This girl married
She
her
can
family
accomplish all that and more.
while pregnant with her ex-husband's baby, and then proceeded to become the first empress of Rome. Meet Livia Drusilla, or simply Livia. Now let me explain. Livia was born in a very important family. She belonged to the patrician gens of the Claudi. She's still a child when Julius Caesar has his rise to power, and she's about 16 when he gets. At 17, her father marries her off to Tiberius Claudius Nero. At that time, we have Mark Antony and Octavian that are determined to A, vindicate Julius Caesar, and B, through that, gain power. So she marries Tiberius Claudius Nero, and as soon as she gets married, she sees him off to war. Why? Because at the time, we have Mark Antony and Octavian on one side, who are fighting against the people that Caesar, Brutus, and Cassius. Both Livia's father and Livia's husband fight with Brutus and Cassius against Octavian and Mark Antony. So her family, and probably herself, really hate this guy over here. Octavian wins, Brutus and Cassius get. Livia, in the meantime, has her first child. She's definitely not happy about the situation. Together with her husband, she's forced to flee Rome to avoid the recrimination of Octavian against his enemies. They go to Sicily, where her husband supports yet another of Octavian's opponents, Sextus Pompeius. After that, she's forced to move to Greece. So by now, she's probably like this, absolutely not amused, being like, this guy Octavian is literally ruining my life. She's never seen him, but she sure hates him. Eventually, an agreement is reached between Octavian and Sextus Pompeius. A general amnesty is announced. That means no recriminations of any sort. It means that Livia can finally return to Rome. And here's where the war movie turns into a rom-com. Because as soon as Octavian, the man that her husband has been fighting against all this while, sees her, he falls for her instantly. But there's a problem, she's married. And there's another problem, he's married as well. Follow for part 2.
There's a part 2 to that? What the heck? I was getting a good history lesson right there, man. Thinking about ancient Rome and all that. I've been watching like some of the that Gladiator series that was by Starz. Some people call it like the first Game of Thrones. What is it called? It's called Spartacus, yeah. I just want to let you guys know that.
2025 just got even crazier. Part 17.
The Statue of Liberty was a gift from France, if you didn't know. But in 2025, a French lawmaker came out and claimed they want the Statue of Liberty back, and said, we gave it to you as a gift, but apparently you despise it. It will be just fine here at home. Now, people online saw this and said, we'll give the Statue of Liberty back, but in return, we get the Eiffel Tower. Oh my goodness. Next, when a delivery driver went to Starbucks to get hot tea, one of the hot venti-sized drinks fell onto the delivery driver's lap. Well, the man has now been awarded $50 million in damages from Starbucks because of the burns from the drink. America has a new...
Freaking fit. Could you guys admit burns on that nigga damn legs like that? What the heck is going on? How can someone just spill it, man? At least you got justice, bro. $50 million. You got his justice.
Gun, and it's one that uses facial recognition and fingerprint scanners. It's called the BioFire Smart Gun. It's the first to actually hit the market, and it's more controversial than you think. You see, to try and push for more firearm safety, this gun only works when its registered owner scans their face or their fingerprint, and the gun locks and becomes unusable as soon as it leaves their hand. It's also trickier to build one of these than you think, because it's not just a gun with a fingerprint scanner slapped on the top. It's actually the first gun ever to not rely on a physical trigger mechanism, but rather it sends an electrical signal to fire the bullet, and it can only get that signal if it's in the owner's hands. But also because of that, it's roughly twice the price at $1,500. Gun control advocates think it's a great idea, saying at least it can't be used in the wrong hands like a child or a criminal. But some firearm enthusiasts, not so keen. If ever this technology could malfunction when you need it the most, or could be used as a slippery slope for more gun control laws over time. The question is, what do you guys think? Is this the gun that America needs, or not?
This is the disturbing truth behind Home Alone. Okay, so we all know and love the movie Home Alone. But did you know the disturbing truth behind it? So, Kevin McAllister grows up to be Jigsaw in the Saw franchise. If you think about it, the traps that Kevin made in Home Alone were extremely sophisticated and advanced, especially for a kid. So, as he got older, his traps became way more brutal, twisted, and complex as an adult. So, Kevin McAllister is actually Jigsaw. And he fell in love putting people in traps ever since the robbers tried to rob his house.
Okay, that one was kind of at my mind turning because I can kind of see that we know it's a theory, man, but you know, like I said, Jigsaw Saw, he loves his chops, man. Home Alone Kevin, he loves his chops also, man. So I definitely see some of the similarities between those two men, but I think that theory is kind of out there. And didn't they just announce like a couple of days ago that they're not making a new Saw movie, like it got canceled. So I don't know, man. That theory is kind of hard for me to get on, but I can see the similarities though. Maybe he got inspired by him, man.
Top 3 strangest ways that people have died. Most people know what a Segway is. They came out just under 20 years ago, and they're basically a giant hoverboard with handles. And in 2009, a man bought Segway Inc. and became the CEO. And unfortunately, just 1 year later, in 2010, he fell off a cliff while on his own Segway while demonstrating its safety procedures. Coming in at number 2, we have the execution of George, the Duke of Clarence. He was the brother of 2 English kings and was sentenced to death in 1478. However, his only request for his execution is that he was to be drowned by a barrel of wine, which goes to show just how much he loved his drinks. And at number 1, the strangest way that somebody has ever died happened in 2013. In the middle of the night, a Brazilian man was fast asleep when a cow fell through his roof and crushed him. And apparently, according to local media of the town, this is the 3rd time that this has happened. Weird.
Cows falling from the sky?
Report at the hospital, there were several missed opportunities where the consultants went to, in some form or another, a meeting, an email, a conversation where they were raising these concerns.
Arguably 15, 20 times they went to managers and flagged their concerns, and not only were they being dismissed, these external reports were being established that were, never going to get to the bottom of why the children were unexpectedly collapsing and dying. We know that now with hindsight. But they were also, by the end, being victimised, bullied. The doctors were actually looking for new jobs. Some of them, their mental health, really suffered because they felt this burden. Should we as individuals have gone to the police early?
This is one of the heartbreaking true stories that likely inspired adolescents. When actor and writer Stephen Graham was asked about stories that inspired the show, he said, "Where it came from for me is there was an incident in Liverpool, a young girl, she was unalived to death by a young boy, and I just thought, why?" It's being reported that he was likely referring to the high-profile case of Ava White. Ava White was an innocent 12-year-old girl who lost her life after attending a Christmas light switch on in Liverpool city centre. She was reportedly approached by a group of teenage boys, and a verbal argument broke out after one of the boys apparently filmed her without her permission and put the video on Snapchat. After Ava asked for the video to be removed from Snapchat, one of the boys, who was aged 14 at the time, unalived her with a knife. I'm sorry I have to use this strange lingo on TikTok, I just don't want to have the video flagged. The schoolboys were all questioned by police, but ultimately it was decided that one of the boys, a 14-year-old, was guilty of taking her life. The young boy who was found guilty of taking Ava's life was sentenced to a minimum of 13 years. One of the similarities between adolescence and this heartbreaking true story is that the boy that was found guilty actually maintained that he was innocent right up until the end. But it wasn't just this story alone that inspired the show. Stephen Graham also said there's a number of stories he's seen on the news about young boys being violent towards young girls that did inspire the story. He also specifically mentions the case of Brianna Gay, who was lured into a park by 2 teenagers and unalived. He said, "I just thought, what's going on and what is happening?"
Facts that might save your life one day.
Surely.
Alright, so if a person you don't know shows up to your house and asks for help in the middle of the night, do not open the door, especially if you're a girl alone, because human traffickers tend to use these tactics to lure girls outside. So just make sure all your doors are locked and call the police straight away. Next, if you ever feel like something bad is about to happen, trust your guts and just leave, because in most cases you might be right. Now, if you're ever involved involved in a plane crash and it crashes in the ocean. Whatever you do, do not inflate your life jacket. Instead, wait until you're outside the plane, because if you inflate it while you're inside, you could get trapped inside as the water level rises. And finally, if you were ever to go homeless during winter, do not sleep on the ground, because people have literally frozen to death that way. Instead, try to find some cardboard pieces and sleep on that, because the ground itself absorbs way more heat than cardboard.
We learning. Those are some interesting facts, man. Especially while on a plane, about not having, life jacket. I didn't even know something like that could happen. You could get trapped in there by the water. Fun fact, have never flown on a plane before. And what's going on now? I don't think I will anytime soon. Get out of you guys, man.
This video will keep you up at night. A man was working as a security guard at a warehouse during his night shift, and he began to feel a little creeped out when weird things started going on in the warehouse around him. He was the only one in the warehouse, and it was about 2:30 in the morning. So he brought out his phone in hopes to catch something unexplainable on camera. At first, the video he took seems pretty normal. There's absolutely nothing weird going on. But when he pans over to the food he brought, the apple moves on its own. He goes to reach for his apple, but right when he does this, the cup on his desk seemingly moves on its own. The man is obviously pretty frightened by this and doesn't know how to react. But when he goes to grab the cup, it again moves on its own away from his hand. Many people believe that this is staged, however, it looks pretty real. What do you guys think?
Here are some accidents that changed the world forever. A scientist left a dirty Petri dish on his desk, came back days later, and then realized the mold inside had just killed bacteria, accidentally discovering antibiotics. A radar engineer felt a strange heat in his pocket, looked down and saw that his chocolate bar was melting. He had just invented the microwave. A chemist trying to make a super strong glue ended up with one so weak it barely stuck, but years later, that failure became post-it notes. A naval engineer dropped a metal spring, watched it bounce perfectly down a flight of stairs, and turned that mistake into the slinky. A physicist experimenting with electricity saw his own bones glowing through his hand, and before he even knew what it was, he had discovered X-rays. A man pulled burrs off his dog's fur, realized nature had built the perfect hook and loop system, and turned it into Velcro. A scientist building a heart monitor grabbed the wrong part, made the circuit pulse, and unknowingly created the first pacemaker. An ice cream vendor ran out of cups, spotted a waffle maker next to him, and rolled one into a cone, changing ice cream forever. Two astronomers kept hearing annoying static in their telescope, thought it was bird poop, and accidentally found proof of the Big Bang. A company selling wallpaper cleaner was going bankrupt until they realized kids were playing with it, so they rebranded it as Play-Doh. A scientist knocked a coated glass flask onto the floor, watched it crack but not shatter, and accidentally invented safety glass. A chemist absorbed an experimental chemical through his skin, started hallucinating, and unknowingly discovered LSD. This is the scariest.
The LSD world, man. Imagine that never would have happened, man. I didn't realize so many of the greatest inventions, man, they came from just freak accidents or failures, and people just picked up with some of those ideas and just kept going. Goes to show you, man, there's success even in failures. Just gotta learn from them.
Story about the school trip. An entire class of 6th graders went on a school trip one day. Everybody was taking pictures with their phones and cameras and having such a great time. But when they all got back to school, they started looking through all the photos they took, when suddenly one of the girls screamed, "Oh my God, what is that?" In the picture, one of the boys in the class was sitting on the bus, and nothing seemed strange about the photo until you looked at his reflection in the window. His face in the reflection looked like it was yellow and bulging, and completely mutating. Also, there was a white floating figure behind him in the reflection. Everybody turned the photo upside down and realized it was a human skull, and it was horrific. And when the boy saw the photo of himself, he immediately burst into tears and had a panic attack. The teacher then took the boy to the nurse's office, and the principal banned everybody from speaking about the strange photo ever again. And to make this even scarier, 7 days later, the boy died from a brain tumor. The photo is said to be on the internet somewhere, but I don't recommend looking for it.
Can someone explain to me what happened to these trucks? Would you rather live here with unlimited food and no internet, or date the third person who appears when you click share and then more? This is supposedly footage of an alien abduction caught on CCTV.
Check it out. Just vanished. What the heck? Just plopped them back down.
Question time. How old would you be if your age was flipped backwards? Let me know down below. Should this family get rid of this doll or not?
It's what happens whenever I put her near my daughter's old Cabbage Patch doll. But that's not the weirdest part. There's no batteries.
What the hell's going on?
But wait, there's more. I even cut the wire to see if that would stop it. Is she causing this?
Yeah. You know we don't do dolls over here, man. How's Opera with no battery and he cut the wires? I don't know if that's staged or not, man. That was eerie. You know what that is.
Last month, 3 suitcases were discovered in Florida with human remains inside, and now a man has been arrested for his wife's murder. On July 21st, police in Delray Beach, Florida found a suitcase in the intercoastal waterway after someone called 911 to report something strange they saw in the waterway. This discovery, police found 2 more suitcases nearby, and the next day found 2 additional bags. Inside the suitcases and bags were human remains of a woman only described at the time as, quote, a white or Hispanic middle-aged woman with brown hair, approximately 5'4". The investigation into these suitcases led police to surveillance footage that then led them to a suspect. Multiple witnesses told detectives about a vehicle and person who was seen in the area multiple times before the suitcases were found. A couple who lived near where the suitcases were discovered told detectives they saw a white male looking into the intercoastal waterway several days before July 21st, the day the suitcase was found. They said he appeared to be looking for something, presumably the suitcase, and they saw him 5 to 6 times over a 3-day period before the 21st. When confronted by the couple, the man said he was waiting for the big boat to come into the harbor. Another group of witnesses who were working on a roof at a property next to where the 3rd suitcase was found said that they saw the same man standing on the seawall looking at the suitcase before he got into his car and left. Video surveillance in the area captured a vehicle tag that led them to their suspect, Delray Beach resident William Lowe, and he had a wife that matched the name that came back from an airline scan code on one of the suitcases. Adil Barbosa Fontes matched the brief description of the remains found in the suitcase, and she shared the same address as Lowe. This led police to acquire a search warrant for the home of 78-year-old Lowe. In searching his home, police found blood spatter throughout the residence, including in the living room, dining room, and primary bathroom. There were also drag marks observed throughout the home, and cleaning supplies that contained blood splatter were found as well. While they were executing the search warrant, detectives said that Lowe attempted to re-enter through the back window, and when he was stopped, he just said he was trying to get his phone and the keys to his storage unit. The search of that storage unit uncovered a chainsaw that appeared to have blood and human hair on it. After all of this, Lowe was arrested on July 31st. During questioning, he reportedly said that his wife Adil had been in Brazil for about 3 weeks. But when questioned further about her trip, he did not know how she got to the airport, what airline she flew on, or the last time he spoke to her. When shown photos of the suitcases, Lowe reportedly said he had never seen them before. But police knew at least one of them belonged to his wife because of the airline tag that had her name connected to it. And when they asked Lowe about this, he just said, "I don't know." Day after Lowe's arrest, the victim found in the suitcases was positively identified through dental records as Adil Barbosa Fontes. ME declared the manner of death to be homicide and the cause of death to be a gunshot wound to the head. The next day, Lowe was charged with first-degree murder and abuse of a dead body. He was denied bail and he has not yet entered a plea, so he remains in prison until his next hearing. Hopefully, he will have to pay for what he did. Rest in peace, Adil.
Chilling story. I don't know how a husband could do that to his own wife. We see some creepy clowns. You guys remember that creepy clown trend, man, on YouTube? That was a freaking time, bro. You risk your life in these streets, man, trying to dress up as a clown. It ain't worth it, man. These clowns are freaking eerie, bro. They posing for these pictures.
Amazing facts you didn't know, part 3. There are more than 1 million ants for every person on Earth. The longest underwater kiss lasted 20 minutes and 11 seconds. Stubbs, this orange cat, was the mayor of Tahkeetna, Alaska for 20 years. Stephen King bought the car that nearly hit and killed him in 1999 and smashed it with a sledgehammer. The Empire State Building has its own zip code. You can see 4 different states from the top of Willis Tower in Chicago. If you go to a McDonald's in the Philippines, you can order a McSpaghetti combo. Google was nearly called back rub. It's impossible to hum while holding your nose. Try it out and follow for more facts.
Oh yeah, he's telling the truth. I could not.
He made the man to be a man. He didn't make the woman to be a man. He made the woman to be a woman. And this is the truth. What are you gonna do? Come attack me now? I should. Hey man, that's up to you. If you want to pull that, well, God bless you. So you just threatened me with a gun. You just pulled a gun on my face. Man, Lord have mercy on you. This means that you don't even know who you are.
Stop scrolling because this has to be one of the scariest skinwalker encounters ever. Reddit user Troutmaster said that his ward at church purchased a piece of land. It was a wooded area with a little bit of swamp. When he was a teenager, him and his buddies would always go there for campouts. And at night, when it was pitch black, they would all play manhunt. One time, they all got down to one person whose name was David. They had split up and gone deep into the forest towards the swamp because it seemed like it was impossible to find him. They thought that he might have gone a little bit further than they usually went. They started getting into some more muddy and wet terrain. As they got closer to the swamp-like area, they saw David out in the swamp. He wasn't wearing any shirt, and with the spotlight on him, he looked super pale. He just stood there and didn't say a word. You could seriously tell that something was off. Then, all of a sudden, they heard David from behind them yelling and trying to get their attention, which meant that what they saw in front of them wasn't David. They yelled and ran back to the campsite as fast as they could.
I got Slender Man vibes, man, when I saw that this clear face. I mean, they was out in the woods. It was late at night. Maybe the moms was playing tricks on them, man. That's why it's got to be real good surroundings. But to say he was that pale and he can't have no face, yeah, I definitely got some Slender Man vibes. Hopefully, I'm not the only one, man.
Seemingly normal photos with disturbing backstories, part 1. This photo shows Apollo 1 astronauts praying as a joke, and not a single one of them returned back to Earth. This is a photo of a man smiling in the trenches during the war, but he wasn't smiling because he was happy. He was smiling due to shell shock and borderline insanity. This just looks like 3 girls taking a selfie, but the light in the background is actually a train which hits and ends all their lives just seconds later.
Pictures tell a story.
Creepy photos that can't be explained. This photo was taken in the basement of a house that was for sale a few years ago. The photo was taken by a realtor because he wanted to show his clients the house. Everything looks completely normal in this house until you look at the left corner. What appears to be a fairly transparent woman is standing towards the bottom of the stairs going to the basement. The realtor insists that nobody was there when he took the photo, but the strangest part about this photo lies in the backstory of this house. The house was previously owned by a man and his wife, but unfortunately the wife passed away, so the husband decided to sell. Another reason why the man wanted to sell his house is because after his wife passed, he kept hearing strange noises in the middle of the night while home alone. What do you guys think? Who or what was captured on camera? Like and follow for more.
You caught that ghost in 4K, man. As either a ghost or spirit. Or haunting and roaming that house. I think it could have been a wife, man. The story lines up. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Leave you guys
Do you ever
thoughts
see a
down
picture
below.
that just makes your stomach drop? This is a screenshot from a security alert that a woman named Alexis Randall received on her phone. It came from a security camera that was set up in her living room, but she's staring at the image and she's wondering the same thing you are. There's nothing there. What's wrong with this picture? Why did the motion detector go off? But then look a bit closer, specifically at the bathroom doorway. This man who was staring at the camera from the doorway. The moment she saw this, she immediately panicked and called the police, but by the time the officers arrived, the man was gone. What terrified her even more was that investigators discovered that the bathroom window had been tampered with. Additional security footage showed that the man had actually climbed through that window the night before and had been hiding in the hallway bathroom the entire time, even while she was at home.
Pictures of extremely unsettling
insane.
things. Part 1. Caves aren't just creepy and dangerous on land. Check out the sign to an entrance of an underwater cave. Prevent your own unaliving. Go no further. More than 300 divers, including water scuba dive instructors, have been unalived here. There is nothing in this cave worth becoming unalived for. Do not go beyond this point. Don't forget to like and follow for a part 2.
A
Mr.
mum
Warner
who
was
wrote a
set up.
book to help her own children deal with the grief of the death of their father has just been arrested on suspicion of his murder. Curry Richards was arrested on Monday on suspicion of poisoning her husband Eric in their home last year in Kamas, Utah. The night Eric died, Richards said she made him a Moscow Mule drink and gave him a THC gummy, allegedly to celebrate selling a property as part of their real estate business. She then apparently went to soothe one of her children before coming back to find him passed out and stone cold around 3 a.m. The medical examiners said they found 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system, a painkiller which is 100 times more powerful than morphine. Following Eric's death, Curry actually wrote Are You With Me?, a children's picture book aimed at little kids to help them deal with the death of a loved one. She did television interviews, editorial articles, but now it looks like police think she was the one who in fact killed her children's father. Now, the motive around the alleged murder has not been confirmed, but she did change herself on Eric's life insurance to be the sole beneficiary before he died.
Money.
And in a shocking discovery, a warrant actually claims Eric noticed this and changed that back as well as his power of attorney and handed it over to his sister in complete secret without his wife finding out. Why? He was allegedly scared she would kill him for the money. Court documents have shown that Richards bought $900 worth of fentanyl pills just before a Valentine's Day meal where Eric became really sick and suffered an allergic reaction but luckily survived. However, 2 weeks later she brought another $900 worth of fentanyl pills when days later he died of an overdose. This is a shocking story with a lot more details. To hear all about it, head to dailymail.com.
My man pulled a 9,000 IQ move, man. He switched everything out before it happened because he knew, man, he had a gut feeling, like he said, that his wife was freaking trying to take him out. And look what happened, man. She thought she was going to get that money. He said, nope. I'm going to switch it all out. Gave it to her sister, man. And the fact that she wrote a book, knowing what she did, this world is a crazy place.
Shh. Stay still. Stay still.
Now, if you think that woman's overreacting, then you really have no idea what she's up against. It's arguably the most dangerous animal the average American has never heard of. I had enough love. Those are javelinas. Also known as peccaries, they look like desert pigs. They're actually from a different family. They're the mascot of a sleeper build. They might look like some extra seasoned bacon, but they'll put you in a permanent nap if you press them. The reason why? Those right there. They have tusks, and tusk stands for terriers like Kruger. Every year, people get sent to the ER after getting gored by this aggressive not a pig. One woman got mauled, and the peccary tore all the tendons in her arm to where she couldn't move her fingers. But it could have been worse because they're about yay high. If they catch the wrong part of your leg and sever your femoral artery, then you are to be an obituary. You cooked, my guy. Like most animals, they're not out here looking for phase, but there's 2 good ways you can get got, and one is if you get too close to their spawn. they will run up on you in the name of parenthood. Speaking of run as fast as you think they are faster. But things can get real critical if you're walking your dog. Why? Well, javelinas have a lot of predators. One of them are coyotes. And what's a dog to a peccary with canine bias? Yeah, your pet can get profiled and get y'all both packed up. And also, since they travel in groups called squadrons, you can really get packed up by a squad of swine. Also, they have poor eyesight, so any movement can be a threat. So if you're ever in the US Southwest and peep a peccary, you're gonna want to keep your distance, make noise so they can avoid you, and if it gets close, throw something not at them, but near them. And remember, most injuries come from people walking into them or even feeding them, so mind your manners, you'll probably be alright. The more you know.
Hey man, he's saving our lives out here, bro, because I really thought that was a pig. I'm like, why she's tripping? That just seems like it's some pigs, man. But thank you, because I don't want to get packed up by them. We learning. You know what that is. You in the hallway with no wind?
Times when psychics helped solve crimes. On May 15, 1976, 14-year-old Susan Jacobson left her home to go to a job interview at an ice cream parlor, but she never came back. Susan's parents contacted the police, but the police said she probably just ran away with her boyfriend Dempsey Hawkins, and they refused to search for her. 2 weeks later, Susan's parents contacted a psychic, Dorothy Allison, to help with the case. Dorothy asked what the word Mar meant, claiming she saw it in red spray paint. She also envisioned an abandoned car, dual church steeples, the smell of oil, and claimed that Susan had been strangled to death by her boyfriend. Then 2 years later, 3 boys stumbled across Susan's body as they were hunting. At the site was the word Mar spray painted in red on a rock, dual church steeples, an abandoned car, and 2 oil drums which contained Susan's body. Plus, evidence at the scene showed that Susan had been strangled by her boyfriend Dempsey Hawkins, who was then sentenced to 22 years to life in prison.
That is sad. Why did that family need to hire a psychic to do the police job? That's what the world come to, man. We gotta hire psychics, man, instead of police actually doing their job. And she nailed it too. I've never been to, you know those people who, like I said, they be seen through the crystal balls or something like that, reading your palms. I've never been to one before, but she was right on the money, so I guess it turns out it's accurate, I guess, sometimes. Voodoo.
AI art is not something that's terribly new, but have you heard about the woman that is haunting AI pictures? This is the face, and nobody can explain why she keeps showing up in AI images. If you look at her, she's not really general. I mean, there are specific characteristics here that are consistent. Yet nobody knows which prompts are generating this woman. Nobody knows why her face continues to appear in different models. So this has opened up one of my favorite questions about the idea that AI pictures can be haunted. And don't forget, if things like this are of interest to you, make sure to go check out the podcast.
This spooky mystery will leave you very confused. Cape Elizabeth is a normal American town in the state of Maine. But in 2005, there were some weird things going on in the area. Several residents claimed to have been waking up in the middle of the night to see a strange man staring back at them in their bedroom. But before they could react, he would vanish. Many members of the town went to the police and described the man that they saw. And oddly enough, they all gave the same description. This is the face of the man who everyone claimed to see in their rooms at night. This sketch was featured on the local news, and several people around the area called in with suspects. However, the police never arrested anybody, and the man was never seen again. So what do you think happened?
Could have been a roamer. Maybe. That's my best guess. People saw them in the middle of the night, but the police has no idea where that man was at. That's my best guess, man. He was a roamer. That's all I got for you today.
Do you guys know the story behind the Amber Alert? On January 13th, 1996, 9-year-old Amber Hagerman rode her bike with her little brother Ricky 2 blocks away from her grandmother's house. Suddenly, a man in a black pickup truck approached Amber and forced her into his vehicle. The only witness to Amber's abduction was a 78-year-old man named Jim Kevill, who immediately contacted police and notified them. Amber's little brother, Ricky, does not remember much of what happened that day, but he does recall riding his bike back home and his sister not being behind him. 5 days later, Amber's lifeless body was found in a nearby creek, and 26 years later, her murder remains unsolved. When Amber went missing, there was no available notification system to alert the public of Amber's kidnapping. 9 months later, the Amber Hagerman Child Protection Act was passed, leading to the start of the Amber Alert system. The case has never gone cold, and police continue to work on finding the person responsible for Amber's abduction and murder. Amber would have been 35 years old today.
Damn, that's chilling. The origins of the Amber Alert.
It's what she finds in the kitchen that's really scary. In the early 90s, a young girl was sleeping in her mom's bed when she suddenly woke up for no reason. She looked at her door and she saw her very affectionate cat kind of meowing down the hall as if someone was coming up to pet it, but she was next to her mom and they were the only ones in the house. The girl shakes her mom awake and points to the cat just as a man is walking past the door and disappears into the room across the hall. Before the man could come back out and find them, they both jump out the window, run across the street, and call the police. When the police arrive, the guy is nowhere to be found, but they do discover that the front door was unlocked, so that had to be the way he got in and out. But the mother swears up and down that she locked that door before she went to bed. A week later, the mother's cleaning their kitchen, and she opens up the water heater closet where she finds this notebook that inside is their names and pictures of them in it, along with a pair of surgical gloves. Which means someone had snuck in at some point, was living in that closet spying on them, and then walking around their house at night.
How do people not know when people would get into their house?
Scary facts that you didn't know about the Ghostface Killer. So the first movie that the Ghostface Killer was actually in was called Scary Movie. If you guys have never seen it, it's pretty much like a scary parody movie. It's very, very funny. It's also got a little bit of scariness in it. It's a 10 out of 10 watch. I think it's really funny. But this movie is actually based on a true story. It's based on a 1990s murder case where 5 people were actually killed. Hence the reason they shoot the movie in high school, the first one where he's actually in the movie. They based it off of high school instead of completely copying it from college. And the man who actually killed those kids was Danny Rowland, 36 years old. He was sentenced to death. Did you guys know that when this movie first aired, a ton of people were super scared because of the fact that he calls you and there's no caller ID? That they actually invested in getting caller IDs. There was millions and millions of people who were freaking out once it dropped. I mean, shit, I would have done the same thing. But every single horror movie, Scream has the highest body count. He has killed the most people in any scary movie. That's a freaking record in itself. For one of the most gorgeous horror movies, when they were first making the movie, they were afraid that it wasn't going to sell because of how much violence, blood, and guts it is. If you guys have never seen these movies, I really suggest you guys checking them out.
It's not every day.
I think I've seen the first one, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen the first one, yeah. I got like Regina Holland in it. Yeah, it's that one. Yeah, I seen that one. Shout out Mike Madison. I guess the only Oscar winning actress who won. And she was a Ghostface 2 in the newer versions. I haven't checked out any of the new versions of Scream. Are they worth checking out? Any of you seekers watch them, man? You can tell me the recommendations down below.
That a serial killer goes out of their way to apologize for crimes they've committed, or to go out of their way to save an innocent man for being blamed for the murders that the serial killer actually did. The only problem here is the serial killer let the other guy off scot-free by murdering the judge who was putting the innocent man on trial. This man, Will Graham, was accused of being the Chesapeake Ripper, who allegedly not only murdered several people, dismembered them, and ate their organs. The only problem, Will Graham was not the Chesapeake Ripper, but his bestie and psychiatrist Hannibal Lecter was the Chesapeake Ripper. And Hannibal Lecter's actually the one that framed Will Graham in the first place. Hannibal wanted to get off scot-free, he needed somebody to take the fall for him. But he realized during the trial, while seeing Will locked up, that he actually really cared for Will and didn't want to see him take the fall for this. So he causes a mistrial by murdering the judge in a style in which only the Chesapeake Ripper would know to do. He completely knocks the top of the judge's head off of his body, takes out his brain and heart, and makes the judge's body hold it in like a balance, and strings him up in the courtroom for everyone to find when they're coming in for the verdict. This causes a mistrial and saves Will Graham's life. The killer wrote you a poem, Will. Are you going to let his love go to waste? Which I think is another big reason why the heart and the brain are in the balance in the judge's hand. Because Hannibal Lecter knows logically that he should let Will take the fall, but his heart says, no, I love Will, I care for him a lot, and I don't want to see him get ripped away from me.
Imagine if your grandparents disappeared, like
completely without a trace. Welcome to Creep Time on TikTok with Silas Dean. This is the haunting story of Charles and Catherine Romer. On April 8th of 1980, a wealthy elderly couple named Charles and Catherine check into a Holiday Inn right off I-95. They're just on their way home from a vacation. But to put this in context, this wasn't a usual choice for them. These were two very well-off people, so to choose a Holiday Inn, it wouldn't have been typical of them. But not long after checking into their room, the couple seemingly vanished. After 2 or 3 days, hotel management became concerned that they hadn't seen the couple leave their room, so they went to go check on them. This was only to find that their room had never been slept in. Inside the room were all of their clothes, their travel diary, and over $60,000 of Catherine's jewelry. Hotel staff then goes out to the parking lot and finds that their car is missing, but no one ever saw them leave. At the time, only one witness comes forward saying that they saw this car miles away at a restaurant circuit. But after they interviewed people at the restaurant, nobody remembered seeing this couple. Despite search efforts, they were never found after that night, and no one really knows what happened to them.
To the Romans? I think it was probably money motivated.
Let's talk about more of the worst things someone's confessed to before passing. This brings us to the town of Dayton, and for 17 years, they were left wondering what happened to Christine Kett. So on a cold and snowy afternoon, a real long time ago, on January 11th of 1967, neighbors of Miss Christine Kett, so in this story, there's Mama Christine Kett and there's Daughter Christine Kett, and Daughter Christine Kett has a brother. So the brother arrives home from work to find his 18-year-old sister in the floor, her head's been bashed in. There's blood all over this kitchen floor. There was a pew-pew found next to her, which had not been fired off, and there were also pieces of her skull found nearby. So Mama Christine arrives on scene, gets kind of caught up with what happened. She was supposedly on a shopping trip all day, and no one's seen her since the morning. So Mama Christine, her boyfriend, and the brother are all questioned, but they're let go. I mean, this is the 1800s. It's, you know. This case goes cold for 17 years. People are left wondering what happened to Christine until March of 1884, when Mama Christine gets real sick and she calls her son to her side. Mama Christine confesses that Daughter Christine was supposed to be whipping up supper, but she got home late, so the argument escalates and escalates till Mama Christine picks up an axe and starts bashing Daughter Christine's head with it. This was a complete sneak attack, and Daughter Christine stands no chance. She passes almost immediately, and then Mama Christine's like, oh, I need an alibi, so she says, what better alibi than that I was shopping? Mama Christine also makes him promise to not tell the cops what happened until he's about to pass, but after his mom passes, he goes to the cops and tells them what happened. Supposedly the locals weren't too surprised about this, because at the funeral, Mama Christine ain't shed a single tear, so that's pretty scary.
It truly is, man. Your own blood did that to you. They were mother and daughter. She shed no shit. Tears at the funeral, that's a sign. It'd be right in front of us. It's in the details.
On February 17th, emergency responders responded to an emergency at a Waterbury, Connecticut home. When they got there, they found a 32-year-old man who had been locked in his room since he was 11 years old by his stepmother. According to the man, his stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, had him locked in a room and was only giving him sandwiches 2 times a day, and she has been doing that for the past 20 years. The man's father had passed away, and his birth mother was never in the picture, and therefore he was left with Kimberly Sullivan. Now, back when he was a child, the police were called and Child Protective Services were called from the school on Kimberly on multiple occasions, and no one intervened on behalf of the child. And now this man was found inside of the room 20 years later. He is so frail and thin and gone through so much that he is traumatized. And this woman acts as if she's surprised by the charges. According to the victim, he purposely set the house on fire so he would be found, stating that he wanted his freedom from her. When emergency responders found the man, he only weighed 68 pounds. And according to the victim, he was locked inside of that room for 20 years for 22 hours a day. The victim stated that he was only let out the room to complete chores, and multiple times he was forced to drink toilet water because he was so thirsty. And this woman shows up to court with a cross on her chest.
So I'm obsessed.
Imagine not being able to leave your room. You only get like 2 hours of freedom a day. and then you just right back in with 2 sandwiches. That's it. No entertainment, no nothing, man. My mind will go insane. And he survived that for over 20 years. And she coming to court with a cross on her chest. After like she didn't do nothing wrong. It's with these people, man.
With the dark side of Disney. And did you know there's a horrible period of accidents at Disneyland that doesn't really get talked about a lot? It's been referred to as the Disney Dark Ages. It was from 1997 to 2003 when this guy, Paul Pressler, was the president of Disneyland. Paul basically decided they were no longer going to do scheduled maintenance on rides. They were only going to fix rides when they were broken. Did it save money? Sure. But this resulted in some of the worst accidents the park had ever seen. One of the worst being that of Brandon Zucker. In 2001, Brandon Zucker was on the Roger Rabbit ride, which was already having maintenance issues. An employee put Brandon on the wrong side of the car, and when he put the lap band down, it didn't close all the way. So at one point in the ride, Brandon tumbled out of his seat and was hit by an oncoming car. The car pinned him and dragged him down the track before anyone could do anything. Also, at the time, Disney employees were not allowed to call 911. They had to call park emergency services, who then called 911, so it took a while for anyone to come get Brandon. He did survive the accident, but he had brain damage so bad he was nonverbal and lost a lot of motor skills for the rest of his life. And eventually he passed away at 13 years old. This photo is terrifying, but not for the reason you think. Sure, it does look like Abraham Lincoln is giving his wife a back massage from the afterlife, and that is spooky. But this woman here, Mary Todd Lincoln, was into some really witchy stuff and is the reason that the White House is haunted. Let me explain. And before we dive in, tonight's episode is all about hauntings of the White House, so you don't want to miss it. So when the Lincolns were in the White House, their youngest son, Willie, died of typhoid fever. He was only 11 when he died, and Mary, who was already suffering from mental health issues, was inconsolable when he died. And in her grief and desperation, she started holding seances in the White House. At first they were harmless. She would just conjure the ghost of Willie, whose ghost actually still haunts the White House today. But then they started getting out of control, and Mary was calling all sorts of ghosts into the White House. Guests would hear stomping and swearing come from nowhere. One person said they even heard Andrew Jackson playing the violin once. And the White House stayed haunted after she stopped doing these seances. When William Howard Taft was president, his aides said that they were being tormented by a ghost they called the Thing. And one woman who thought she saw it actually said it looked like a young boy. So when you see this photo, it may look like a gag, but Mary was up to some really witchy stuff in the White House. Be sure to tune in tonight for more spooky stories and history.
The White House haunters, that's why some presidents, you know, they be living, I guess, outside of the White House. They be having multiple houses. Is that where it stemmed from? Learning about some ancient history today.
Another cold case has been solved as a woman who has been missing for 25 years was reunited with her father this week. On October 5th, 1999, 2-year-old Andrea Reyes was abducted by her mother, Rosa Tenorio, who did not have custody of her. Her father, Carlos, had custody, but her mother abducted her and she was never found. Police believed that she had taken the girl to Mexico, but she could not be located. Carlos went there multiple times searching for Andrea, and he could never find her. The FBI and New Haven, Connecticut police issued a felony arrest warrant for her mother, but the case unfortunately went cold and Andrea and her mother could not be located. Her case was entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System and was considered a cold case for years. Investigators released at least 3 age-progressed photos of her over the years, the last in 2020. But her case still remained cold until 2023, when the New Haven Police Department's Special Victims Unit reviewed cold cases and took on the Reyes case. Investigators working on the case used interviews, search warrants, and social media to find out where the girl's mother had taken her. Now 27 years old, Andrea Reyes was located in Puebla, Mexico. During the renewed search, a woman contacted a man who she believed was her father. The New Haven Police Department worked with the DNA testing company Othram to see how closely the two were related. Othram compared the woman's DNA sample to her potential father's DNA sample, and on March 4th, they confirmed that he is her father. And then it was determined that that woman was the missing 2-year-old from 1999, Andrea Reyes. A detective was able to establish contact with Andrea, and after confirming the match to her father, put her in contact with him. They have spoken outspoken now for the first time in over 20 years. There is still an active warrant out for the girl's mother, Rosa Tenorio, who allegedly kidnapped her, but she is believed to be in Mexico and the warrant is only valid in the US. But Carlos is so happy to finally have answers and have his daughter back. Carlos and his wife, Lucia, thanked police, federal authorities, and missing persons groups for all their help. Currently, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is helping to prepare the father and daughter for an in-person reunion. While no arrests have been made and there's no real justice served, at least now Andrea finally has her father back, and he has her.
This high school senior
Yes.
buried her baby in the backyard and got away with it. This is Brooke Skylar Richardson, and she was born on March 9th of 1999 and is from Ohio. Brooke had found out she was pregnant during her senior year of high school. She was at her doctor's office when she found out she was going to be giving birth in just a couple of weeks, and supposedly she went throughout her whole pregnancy without knowing she was pregnant. Hearing this news, she cried out loud that she was not prepared at all to have a baby, and she begged that doctor to please give her some birth control, even though she was already pregnant. With this news, she decided she was going to keep it a secret from all of her family and all of her friends. Before giving birth, she did some Google searches, and 2 of those Google searches were how to not have a baby and how to get rid of a baby. On May 5th of 2017, Brooke attended her senior prom, and within 48 hours, she gave birth in the bathroom of her parents' home. That is when she decided she was going to bury the baby in the backyard of her parents' home. Since the 6th grade, Brooke had suffered from an eating disorder, so the next morning after the delivery, she was at the gym and she texted her mom that she was so happy because her belly was finally going back to normal. For about 2 months, the baby remained buried in the backyard, and she didn't tell anyone what happened. Brooke eventually had an appointment with her doctor, and that is when she admitted that she gave birth and buried the baby in the backyard. And once the doctor found out about that, they reported it to the police. On July 14th of 2017, the baby's skeletal remains were dug up from the backyard. The initial autopsy revealed that the baby was partially charred and died of homicidal violence. In a recorded interview with police, they had came up with the idea that Brooke may have tried to do a cremation for the baby, and later on, Brooke agreed that she did try. A psychologist had diagnosed Brooke with a dependent personality disorder, and he believed that this disorder may have led her to make a false confession. After trial, Brooke was not convicted on the more serious charges because prosecutors could not prove their case. Brooke was able to go to college, and she ended up working part-time at a law firm, and these are the people that had represented her in court. Her probation had ended in 2020, but it was supposed to last for 2 more years.
That's just a sad case, man. Ooh. Had some twists and turns I was not expecting. Seekers, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're a true seeker seeking the truth. I really appreciate the support. Make sure you guys leave a thumbs up on this video. Comment down below. Also, hit that post notification bell so you always get notified when I upload my next videos. You guys are going to catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.